Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Workflows and Espressos. My name is Meaghan Moylan, the host of your favorite podcast. I'm so excited to have you back. So I guess right after I pressed record, I said that I was bringing the chaos today, and that is because I am. So I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning because my fiance and I are in Chicago this weekend for his cousin's wedding. I am currently recording from our hotel room, which we're staying at the Nobu Hotel tonight, and then we're going out to the suburbs for the wedding. And my fiance is a chef, so he has this love of restaurants. And I was telling him when we checked in that his love of restaurants, I feel the same way about hotels and vacation rentals. Like anytime we stay anywhere, I'm just so excited to be somewhere new. And I always look at the steps of service and investigate the rooms more so from like an inspirational standpoint. So I've absolutely loved staying at the Nobu Hotel. We are not eating at Nobu tonight, but I've never been. So I'm like dying to go. And I made this reservation last minute because that's the kind of gal I am. I think I booked it 2 days ago. So anyway, this is why I'm bringing the chaos. So we are meeting with friends tonight, which I'm super excited about. And before we did that, I had to record an episode because obviously. Okay, so I'm also heading to the Executive Summit next week or this week. If you're listening on Tuesday, then I am on a plane on my way to the Executive Summit. There has been a lot of discussion in general, as we all know, about who is going to the Executive Summit and who's going to sit this one out. Clearly, there's a whole lot going on with Verma. I've decided to go. I've got a meeting that I need to attend, but more than anything, I just can't miss out on an opportunity to network with friends and share ideas. And even if things are kind of weird right now with Verma, I still feel excited nonetheless. And I am hoping to plan a couple of surprises for the podcast while I'm there and talk a little bit about it on my next episode. I think today is episode 14, but I'm not necessarily sure. In my notes for this episode, I put episode 14 ? Because I don't know. I'll need to go back and look, but I'm starting to lose count, which is a good sign. We've been doing this for a while. And the title of today's episode is, and I quote, "If your foot has gangrene, cut it off," otherwise known as the guide to letting things go. My old boss used to say this to me all the time when I was really battling with whether or not to let someone go, whether it's an owner or an employee or just making a decision. And she would always say that. And I just have loved that saying ever since. So if your foot has gangrene, cut it off. Let's talk about Meaghan's guide to letting things go. And by letting things go, I mean homeowners and I mean employees. And you know, I love to talk about how to be the best version of yourself and the best version of your company for your employees. But there's also such a thing as needing to let employees go because they're not good for your company. So we're going to talk about this today. Also, anyone who's watching on YouTube, the lighting is giving awful. So I apologize. The one thing about me is that I don't know how to do anything like aesthetically pleasing. I am not wearing my pajamas, or my workout clothes, I should say, which is what I've been doing over the past couple of weeks. But the lighting's so bad that you can't even tell. And then last week you couldn't even see my eyeballs because I was wearing my eyeglasses. Okay, so it is never easy to fire anybody, whether it is a homeowner or whether it's an employee or a vendor that you're working with. But we're going to talk about why it's important, although you probably already know the why, and when, and also how to do it. So what I really mean is ending a relationship when it's no longer serving your company. And this can take many different shapes and forms, and we're going to talk through each of those. And this will stem from really deciding what your non-negotiables are for your business. It's different for everybody. I think the one thing that's true, and excuse my language, but we don't want assholes in 2024, right? And we also don't want them any time other than 2024 too, right? 2025 and beyond. So that is like, it's always pretty easy to decide when you want to let an asshole go because they suck and they're mean to you and your team. But there are lots of times where there's a little bit more of a gray area and things aren't as cut and dry as this person berated my team and they also don't make us any money. So like they have to go. Or this employee has absolutely like come in and made a fool of themselves and has berated one of my team members. Like they absolutely have to go. Those situations are the easiest to deal with. The ones that aren't are when you're kind of on the fence and you don't know whether or not to let an employee go or whether or not to give an owner one more chance, or you haven't even talked to them in the first place. So it really isn't another chance, right? Like you just don't know what the best way to handle the situation is. And so I've really broken down this episode into homeowners and into employees, and we're going to talk through each. Let's start with the homeowners, okay? So like I said earlier, a normal place to draw the line is if they're an asshole. Right? If they're mean to you and your team, if they berate you, if they've said unforgivable things, it's very easy to say like, okay, you're no longer a fit for our program. We're terminating your contract. But where else can you draw the line? And I really have 3 separate indicators that I would look out for when deciding whether or not to keep a homeowner on your program. And even if it isn't one specific homeowner, I do think this is a healthy exercise to do once a year or maybe even twice a year, where you kind of go through your inventory, no matter how many homes you have, and you ask yourself these questions. So the first question is, how much time is this owner taking up? Whether it is you or your team members, how much time are they taking up? Do you have an employee that spends 80% of their time communicating with this homeowner? Are you spending 80% of your time communicating with this homeowner? Do you hear from them constantly? Start to figure out, and I encourage you to do it based on maybe like number of hours, or if that seems too daunting, percentage of time. I think can be a little bit more vague and not so granular. So how much time is this person taking up? And it doesn't have to be exact. Let's just draw a rough estimate. Number 2, does this person update their home or make an effort to spend money to ensure that they're providing the best guest experience? You have this person, I'm saying these words and you're thinking, well, Joe Smith hasn't updated his home since 2007. Okay, that is a mark against Joe Smith. Write that down, all right? Bullet pointed on a spreadsheet. I don't care what you do. You know these owners, that they have the couch from the 1970s. They have horrible drapes. They have a stained carpet the guests have complained about time and time again, or the refrigerator that keeps on broken. You name it. Okay, we have the owners that will not put money back into their property. And another thing those owners love to do is blame it on you. Well, we're not renting, so we can't put money back into our property because we just don't have enough reservations on the books. Okay, Joe Smith, maybe you should take a look in the mirror, as my therapist would say. Okay, and number 3, how much money is this home making you? And I'm not talking about gross revenue. I am talking about what is your take home after your expenses, which we will get into in a little bit, while you're managing this home. So consider these 3 questions and go through this exercise for each one of your properties. And especially if you have somebody that's not making you money, that also isn't updating their home or taking any of your advice into consideration, and they're also blowing you up all the time, like they might not be a good fit for you. They probably aren't a good fit for you. It is worth it to have those conversations. And I've told you before that if you haven't listened, I love the fact that I have creative freedom with workflows and espressos and why it's been such a fun project for me. And I tend to be drawn toward topics of I'm just making sure this is true before I say it out loud. Everything that I've talked about on this podcast is something that I've dealt with personally or been a part of, if not having had dealt with it myself. Specifically, I've at least witnessed it or been in the room while it's happening. And I think that a lot of it comes off of my own mistakes or things that I wish I would have done differently. And so not reviewing homes soon enough and making decisions or having hard conversations soon enough is something that I look back in throughout my career and I regret. So that is one thing that I want to make a common theme of this episode. You are only doing yourself a disservice if you're not having these conversations. So if you have the homeowner that's not updating their home, Elaine Stitcher, I think I've talked about Elaine before, and Lance, of course, they're amazing. And they also have a very similar practice to me and our team. If you have a homeowner that's not making updates, send them an email and say, hey, we're evaluating our program, and in order to move forward with your contract for this next year, however your contracts are set up, of course, this is going to be tailored to what you can and can't do in your own company and with what timeline you're working on. These are the updates that we suggest. If you are not willing to make these, then we will have to transition you out of our program. And I know that this seems hard, right? And this is, of course, like if you've already spoken to this homeowner about these and they have insisted time and time again that they're not going to do them. I guarantee you, when you say, hey, this is the decision that we're making for our business, and in order to move forward, these are the updates that we're requiring, 90% of the time, absolutely we'll get those done. Please don't fire us, right? Owners don't want that. It is a hassle to be fired. And a lot of the times when you take those, when you make those decisions, homeowners come back and start to really back up what they've been saying, even if they've held strong. And honestly, if they say, hey, we're not willing to make those updates and you have to let them go, it's for the best. And the same is true if a homeowner is a time suck. This is a harder conversation to navigate, but I do think it's worth reaching out to this owner yourself and saying, hey, I want you to understand that we're managing X number of homes and we spend 80% of our time communicating back and forth with you. Please know that this is not an effective or efficient or a profitable way to run a business. So we need to adjust expectations here. These conversations suck. I'm not saying that they're easy, but I am saying that they're necessary, and you have to be willing to have them in order to run a business that is going to be the best it can possibly be. So have the conversations, keep a lookout for those 3 things that we chatted through. And then if you're wondering how to decide whether or not a home is profitable on your program, this is really something that people have a lot of questions about because it's not so easy to perform this analysis. So number one, if I would love to chat you through it. Every business is different, but I've done it on a couple of different businesses now, and I have a formula down. It's a big one, okay? And it involves a lot of spreadsheets or one spreadsheet that has a lot of tabs on it, but it is worth the exercise. So get a spreadsheet, put every single property that you have on your spreadsheet, put their projection for this year, and then put what your commission is. And so you know, like, okay, I'm going to take this home before expenses. Then I want you to go to your team and I want you to ask them, this is really just for owner representatives or property managers or owner relations members, whatever you call them in your company. If you have a company that's large enough, if not, then you can do this yourself and you won't need anybody else. Ask them how much time these owners take of their year or of their weeks or whatever, right? Get a pie chart and understand, okay, if this employee makes $50,000 a year and this homeowner takes 10% of their time, okay, $5,000. It costs $5,000 in owner. It's not perfect, okay? But it is close enough. Same thing for housekeeping. How many turns does this house have? Are you making money on housekeeping? How much are you paying your housekeepers to clean this home? Do it for every single department and you will get a rough number that lets you know, okay, it costs me about $20,000 a year to manage this home. If they're bringing in $10,000 a year, it's probably not going to be worth it for you to manage it anymore, depending on what your overall strategy is, unless you really want to get into this specific area. But I am really passionate about doing this exercise because whether or not you do anything with it, knowledge is power. Just having this information in the back of your mind is worth it every single time. So to wrap up the owner piece, which you know we're going to do this at the end of the episode anyway. If they're mean, you should have already fired them yesterday, right? Do not sacrifice your piece and your team's piece to have someone berate you every day. It doesn't matter how much money they make your company. Make sure you know how much time it is costing you and taking you to manage this property. What was I saying? Oh, do they update their house? If they refuse to update their house or put investment back into their investment, then that's knowledge is power, okay? And does this home make you any money or not? do the rough calculation. If you ever have any questions, I'm always more than happy to chat with you about it on LinkedIn. Let's talk about employees. Employees are harder than owners because you see them. You see them day in and day out. They're a part of your team. A lot of people call their team a family. I am one of those people. And I think that there's a lot of decisions, right, that are very clear when to let an employee go. And then there's also decisions that aren't so clear. So, number one, decide what your zero tolerance policy is. We all have the normal things, right? Don't wave your gun around at the office. Don't do crystal meth in the office, whatever it is, okay? I was going to say meth. Do people still say crystal meth? I don't know. I don't really know things about meth, as you might have guessed. Right, I'm just thinking of outlandish things, okay? If this person does something that is clearly a zero tolerance policy for any business, that's one thing, but you might have your own. And these really will stem from your own core values and your business's core values. So really 3 pieces of advice here I have for you, because I can't tell you who and who isn't the right fit and when you shouldn't fire someone. But I will say that it is possible to have the right person in the wrong role. I have seen many employees, honestly, myself included, that have not performed their absolute best because they were in the wrong role. And I remember one employee, honestly, from a couple of years ago, we had considered letting this employee go in the position that they were in. There were a couple of things that had been communicated to us about this employee's performance, whatever. We decided to take that employee and move them into a different position, and they excelled immediately. They needed a different set of responsibilities. They needed a different supervisor. And they honestly needed a different environment. And it taught me so much about the fact that you can have the right person in your company that's doing the wrong job. And I always, of course, unless this person has done something horrible, as we discussed, I think it's really important to check in with people and employees and understand where their skill sets are and where they can be best utilized. Because I think it's sad that a lot of employees end up quitting because they're unhappy, or honestly getting let go or pushed out of a business because they are in the wrong role and they could have excelled in a different area. And it is our job as leaders to make sure that we are cultivating employees as much as possible. Hey, someone did that for us, and that's why we are where we are now. So the second thing is, it is possible to have the right person at your company who just isn't happy. And what I mean by this is, this person is amazing. They fit in with your culture. They have a good attitude, but they hate what they do. They're not inspired by vacation rentals or hotels or travel or whatever role you're in. I've come across a lot of these employees where we have moved them around to a lot of different roles, and it just doesn't matter because they're not ultimately fulfilled. And even though they're happy and they're fun to be around, they're not doing their job to the best of their ability because they're ultimately not super fulfilled by it. And I think that's just really important to keep note of as you really figure out who's on your team and what they're good at and what they're not good at and where you want to take your company in the future. Such an important piece of that is, do you have the right people in the right seats on the bus, which we talked about in episode 1 if you've been listening for this long, and are those people in the right seats on the bus? Okay, final piece of advice that is the closest to my heart because it has impacted me the most on my career or in my career is, be direct and do not let the employee suffer because you're afraid to communicate honestly. And I think this goes back to what I said last week, which is get comfortable being uncomfortable. Be direct and don't let the employee suffer because you're afraid to communicate honestly. We talked about this last episode. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. I know that, trust me, I deeply, deeply relate to sitting down with an employee and giving them hard feedback. I know my fiance is one of these people where he does not have an issue with this. It's easy for him because he sees the bigger picture, and I just get so blinded by being nervous to have the conversation. And I have done more than one person a disservice in my career that I have managed because I didn't feel comfortable being honest with them about the things that they needed to work on because I felt like it would lead to a lack of trust in me or frustration with me and my leadership style. Honestly, I was going to say in whatever, but no, this is important because these feelings aren't real. All I did, I mean, they are real, but like they're not important enough not to be honest with someone. I have watched an employee make a decision or say something out loud that I knew wasn't a cultural fit for our company or was offensive to somebody, and I didn't say anything about it. At the time, number one, I was 25 years old and felt uncomfortable in general in a leadership role. And number two, I felt like it was better to just move on and stick to the plan and get back to the work side of things rather than say, hey, not okay. And let's talk about how this has impacted you and your career here and your relationship with other employees and make sure that this never happens again. Because I just felt like maybe it wasn't important enough to say anything. And the same thing is true for quality of work for an employee. I have let an employee or employees do mediocre work without reprimanding or having a discussion with them about what could have been done better because I just thought like, okay, I can pick up the slack myself. And none of this is good. All of it's really bad and all of it has done nothing but make me comfortable and at the cost of somebody else when I continuously talk about how important it is to cultivate a culture of transparency and honesty and give as much to the employees as you possibly can so that they can be the best they can be for your business. And so I will get off my soapbox now and just say, when you notice behavior or work ethic or quality of work, it doesn't matter. If you notice something is off, please sit down and have a discussion with the employee immediately. It doesn't matter what it is. It will always be worth it. I have felt relieved every single time that I've done it. I've gotten a lot better over the last 10 years and now can say that I am a supervisor that I'd be proud to have myself. And it took me a lot of mistakes to get here. So be direct and don't let the employee suffer because you're afraid to communicate honestly. This will help you a lot of the time, and it will also lead you in the right direction to know whether this employee is a good fit long-term or is not a good fit long-term. Hey, we did things quickly today. We're efficient, okay? We're slaying. We've got things to do. We've got people to fire, mostly asshole owners. We've got profitability to understand. We've got employees to figure out. We've got things to do. All right. TLDR, too long, didn't read. I should say TLDL, too long, didn't listen. Number one, every single negative relationship, whether it be an employee, a vendor, an owner, a customer, whatever, you name it, will fester. Every single relationship will fester if you don't do something about it. Number two, this sounds a little bit cheesy, but letting somebody go is setting them free. Not only are you setting yourself free, but you are setting that person free and allowing them to go do something that is best for them, particularly on the employee side. It can be and is no matter what an employee did, maybe not no matter what, but many times it is excruciating to let an employee go. But if it is not working for you, it is most likely not working for that employee. I would actually venture to say 100% of the time it's not working for them, because if it's not working for you, it shouldn't be working for them. You are giving that person an opportunity to go find somewhere where they're wanted. And I think that that's more important than anything else. Number three, nobody, no one, it doesn't matter. No buts, no ifs, ands, or buts. No one is worth the unhappiness of you and your team. That's it. Also, if your team is coming to you and saying, hey, this employee is toxic, hey, this employee is toxic, hey, this employee is toxic, you're hearing it from many different directions, but you have homeowners that love this employee, do not keep them on your team. It doesn't matter. You will be able to replace them and find someone that your owners like If not just as much, pretty damn close. It's just not worth it. Okay? Listen to your team. Cut the gangrene off if your foot has it on it. Whatever. You remember what I was saying. Okay. Number 5. We don't tolerate assholes. Okay? Never, not once. And number 6, we are in this business because we want to make money, but we are also in this business because we want to be happy and we want to be fulfilled and we want to change people's lives. We give people their dream vacation. That's our job. That is pretty awesome. Let's make sure that we are as fulfilled as possible when we're doing it. Okay, everyone. I didn't bring the chaos as much as I thought I would on this episode, but I had a lot of fun. I am going to go eat dinner now. I hope you do the same. Or if you're enjoying your morning coffee, good morning. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Anyone that's at the Executive Summit this week, I can't wait to see you. If not, then I will see you here again next week on Workflows and Espressos. Don't forget to subscribe. Like and subscribe. Just listen, okay? See you next week. Thank you. Bye.